Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our February 27th Zoom mini class. We are going to be making something that I called a fold flat box card today. And when it's open, it looks like this fun little format. But when you can fold it closed and put a ribbon around it, and then you can send it in the mail. So obviously you don't want your thing in the box to be two-dimensional, but you could put a gift card in there or just a second little note. Those little flat square Ghirardelli chocolates would fit in here nicely. Seed packet, hot chocolate packet. You could do a get well one that says, or that has a soup packet in there. Lots of great little uses for this fun little format. But before we get into making our real box today, in an effort to give you guys lots of templates and formats to work with, I thought we could take our directions and make an actual template for our template files. We'll mark on all the score lines, we'll mark on all the fold lines and cut lines, and then that's a good practice too for us to get into our main project. So if you have a scrap piece of 8.5 by 11 paper handy, please grab it. Grab your pencil or pen if you want to make notes on it. Preferably this is a light color so that you can write on it, but whatever you have handy is great. And we are going to start off with our scoreboard. As always, if you're watching live, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to unmute yourself and ask those questions. If you're watching on replay, just pause, rewind, go over things again. And this will be uploaded to YouTube so that you can watch it on replay at any time. All right, so I'm going to jump in with my scoreboard, get it out from my pile here. Keep my directions handy. So this is with your template paper, not your real paper. You're going to start by putting your 8.5 by 11 cardstock in your scoreboard horizontally. You know what? I'm going to change that. Let's do the vertical folds first. So we're going to turn it this way. So it's vertical. And like many of the projects that we work on, most of our score lines are going to be symmetrical. So I'm going to tell you to go in 1 3/4 of an inch from the right side, and then 1 3/4 of an inch from, left side and then right side. I will try to do the math and give you those measurements as we go if you want to mark them full, or if you just want to mark 1 3/4 in from the sides. Both of those options work. So as I just said, our first measurement here in from the left-hand side is a full score line top to bottom at 1 3/4 of an inch. 1 3/4 of an inch. Go lightly at first to make sure you're getting in the right little groove, and then just build up your score line like so. We need to do 1 3/4 in from the right side now. So 1 would be 7.5. So we want to do 6 3/4. I'm going to add that to my notes. Yeah, 8.5 to 7.5 to 6 3/4. Of course, I wrote it down. Or if it's easier for you to remember, you can very easily just flip it all the way around and do that 1 3/4 again. And since I've got it here, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. So while we've got our template here, while we know our measurements, I'm just going to write it down. This was 1 3/4, and this was 6 3/4. So I've just written it on the top of my template so we know going forward. Now I'm going to do the horizontal lines. And once again, it's very symmetrical. So we're going to do 2 score lines on the left side and then 2 score lines on the right side. I have written those ones down so we can just walk our way across or flip and rotate, whatever is easiest for you. The first score line is going to be at 2 inches. So 2 inches all the way down. And the next score line is at 3 3/4. And if you need to remember that, or if you're trying to resize that to do a different size later on, this second score line is the same width as the first ones we did on the vertical, because these are the sides that are making the box. So just to recap, we're going over 1 3/4 from 2. Did I write that? Yeah, so at 3 3/4. Okay, so just to write it down, we did a score line at 2. We did a score line at 3 3/4. If you're doing the rotate method, you're just going to flip it 180 degrees and do 2 3/4 again. If you like the full measurements, which I like to try and do it all at once if I can, we are going to score it 7 1/4. That is 7 1/4. And then at 9. And if you work your way back in the math, we've got an 11-inch piece of paper, that's 2 inches, and then 1 3/4. So your grand total is 7 1/4 and 9. So one last recap. On the vertical, we have 1 3/4, 6 3/4. On the horizontal, we have 2, 3 3/4, 7 1/4, and 9. There are 2 more sets of score lines that are a little bit trickier because we want to make it a point and a triangle. So the best way that I found to do this, and I think I'm going to stand up just so I can get right over top of my scoreboard. So I'm going to come along here and just with my pencil, well, I'm going to use my pen because this is my template, but I'm going to mark at the 5 1/2 inch mark, but I'm just going to do a little tick mark. And that's at 5 1/2. Because what I want to do is I want to do a score line. Where did my little ruler go? I want to do a score line that runs from this corner up to that tick mark, and then the same down to this side. Now, some scoreboards I know have a little triangle insert that you can put in your scoreboard so you can do those diagonal lines. Unfortunately, mine does not have that, but I am going to do the best I can to find a groove. I wish I had a longer ruler. Do I have a piece of cardstock? No, but I got a piece of chipboard. So you just need a straight edge that's going to go along that line. So let me find a line that's on the groove. Line that up. And now I can do my score line. And do the same thing on this other side. Find a groove. Line up my paper. Now that I've got the pen mark, you probably can't see it very well, but these are now score lines. And we need to do it the same way in this bottom section. So let me mark my 5.5, mark my corner. If you're doing this for real, when I did my prototype, I actually drew in with a pencil so that I could erase it afterwards. It makes it easier to see. And then let's score these babies up. And the other side. All righty. So now we have our score lines. We've got our triangle down here, our triangle up here, and all of these score lines here. We now just have to make a couple of small cuts. So I'm going to just tuck my scoreboard away for right now. So if you turn it so that your triangles are pointing out to the sides, we are going to cut on this line here, on this line here, and the same on the other side. And then we're going to cut along here. So essentially these corner pieces are being cut away. Now, if you want to keep that as a reminder for your template, I would not recommend cutting them out right now. We'll do that when we do our real version. That way you keep everything intact in your template. But just so I can show you then how this all comes together. Actually, let me just pull out my prototype here. Starts to look a little bit like a frog. So once you've got all your pieces cut away, you've got those corner pieces gone. You've got little flaps this way. So if you fold on all your score lines, the way I found it easiest is that your point is going to come into the middle, and then you're going to fold it so that the little flaps come into your box. And this is where you're going to apply the glue. Do the same on the bottom. And then I just folded my flaps over. And we'll do this for real, so don't worry too much if you're trying to just do your template, but that's how your box is made. I really just wanted you to have a nice little template to have all your measurements on. So if you want to write some notes to yourself, you're going to say fold in, fold in, and I'm just on one of these tabs, I'm going to say tape on back. So just some of my notes that you can remember when you go to do it the next time, in case you make one and give it away. Because that's always the hardest part, is remembering what directions those things go in if you don't have your sample. So hopefully everyone is good with that. We've got our little template here. Let us go on to our real version, and that way the folds will be becoming a little bit more obvious in that respect. I see nodding heads. I hope everything is good. All right, let's try this again. Practice always makes perfect. So this time I'm pulling out a colored piece of cardstock. This is one of our new textured cardstocks from Lawn Fawn. It's got these cute little polka dots on them. because I actually want the polka dots to be on these top flaps. So I'm going to do all my score lines with the polka dots facing up. The back side there, you can still sort of see the polka dots, but it's a lot more faint. I'm just going to jump in with my polka dots on the top. And here we go. Sip of coffee first. It's better. All right. So with your paper in vertical, we are going to score at 1 3/4. And we're going to score at 6 3/4. Now we are going to flip it horizontal, and I'm flipping my template at the same time so that I keep everything facing the same way. We're going to score at 2. We're going to score at 3 3/4. We're going to come all the way over here. We're going to score at 7 1/4. And we're going to score at 9. One more time for recap. On the vertical, we scored at 1 3/4 and 6 3/4, which was 1 3/4 of an inch in from either side. Then we rotated it horizontal. We scored at 2, 3 3/4, 7 1/4, and 9. And once again, that is a symmetrical mirror measurement. So 2 inches from the outside and then 1 3/4 inch further along. And that gives us our main folds. Now I need to get a pencil, not a pen, so that I can erase it. I am going to mark at 5 1/2 at the top. While I've got my scoreboard, I'm going to flip it around, do 5 1/2 on the other side as well. And this is where I need to line up my triangles and make those diagonal folds. So I'm just going to mark that so that I can see it. All right. You can keep your cardstock there if you wish. I'm just using it to line that up there. What am I doing? So I've made my triangle on the top and now the triangle on the bottom. If you don't happen to get right in the corner, if you're off just a smidge, it's not an issue. Your box will still fold beautifully. Sometimes these diagonals are a little bit tricky. There we go. Put this up here. All right, we are done with our scoring. And we are done with our template, unless you want to have it handy to keep notes on. Oh, you want to keep it handy because we've got the cut lines on here. Okie dokie. Score lines are done. I'm going to grab my scissors. And this is where I'm going to cut on that vertical line and then cut that tab off. So just using my scissors, you could use your paper trimmer if you prefer. We're not cutting this line. We're coming down to this first score line and just trimming that tab off. There's one. Do the same in all four corners. Not this tab, this one here. Flip around, up the vertical. And across that first horizontal. And last corner. There we go. So hopefully your little piece of cardstock looks like mine. And now we simply have to play with our folds and start assembling our box. So I'm just going to start by folding in on my score lines. And with this top one, this first flap here is actually going to fold back because this is going to be the top of our card or our box. Same way here. So I'm going to fold in, I'm going to fold in, and then I'm going to fold back. So you've got these two little flappy doors. I'm going to fold, for right now, I'm going to fold in and then put it back. I'm going to fold on my diagonal and fold that back on itself. Open it up and all the same way. So just get nice and creased on all of your folds. And that one there. So now we've got everything creased. As with most interactive and box type projects, this part is key because it's where you put the tape and where you don't put the tape. So let's start with the top one. I'm going to take my point. Let me just make sure. Yeah, the point is coming in. So I'm going to fold this whole flap down on itself. I'm going to go backwards on the diagonal and then forwards again on that straight line. Fold backwards on the diagonal, fold straight down here. So it looks like you've got two little squares here. And if you open those squares, you've got that triangle. This is where you want to put the tape. So let me just get this ready. And again, because it's a box and because it's going to be getting really well folded and played with, the score tape is my recommendation for taping. But if you have another option, like if you prefer wet glue, for example, just know that you've got to hold it while it sets. Whereas with the score tape, it's going to be really quick and hold right away. All right. So I've got my little squares here. I'm going to peel off my backings. 1, 2. So I'm just doing one side first. And I'm going to fold. You know what? We're going to stop for a second. Even though I've pulled these, I'm okay with that. I'm going to do the bottom one too, so that when we fold over that side, it's going to stick to both top and bottom at the same time. So if you've already peeled or if you already put glue on, if you can hold tight, great. If not, I would still say fold over that side and we'll figure this one out. But since I stopped it in time, I'm going to fold my point up, fold back on the diagonal, fold up. We're just repeating the same thing we did at the top here. So we've got two little squares hiding our point. Let's tape it up. There's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Yeah, and this is where he starts to look like he's a frog. Okay, holding this down, holding this down. So I've already peeled this top right square. So now I'm going to peel the bottom right square. 1, 2, 3. We want this to stick to here, so I'm just going to fold it right over. Give it a good burnish. And now that side of the box is holding. Let's do the other side. Top, top, top. Now I'm sticky. Bottom, bottom, and bottom. Okay. Hold the right side down, hold those little squares and fold it over. Didn't get mine quite straight. There we go. And you may have a slight gap in the middle. You can either just kind of maneuver your score line a little bit, or when we decorate it, you can cover that up. I'm not going to worry too much about it. And then when the person receives the card, they're going to open it up and there is your little box. Yeah, I think what I needed to do is my square needed to be a little bit deeper in the fold, but it's all, excuse me, it's all workable. So that's your basic mechanism. Really cute and easy. Like you said, like I said, you could tuck a little hot chocolate packet in there or a gift card. And then the person who receives it can just leave it sitting open when they get it, if they want to use it to put Post-it notes or something in. Just a really cute option. What I would probably do once I get it all ready to go is I might wrap up a ribbon around it, or maybe create a belly band, but it's just the idea that you get that mechanism. So while we still have a few minutes here, I am going to continue and decorate this guy up. If you have pattern paper, I think in the email I suggested cutting 2 pieces that were 4 3/4 by 1 3/4. That's to go on the panel here. Just as I was sitting here, and because mine doesn't necessarily match up very well, you could also do it where you've got one full panel and just when it opens up, it's only attached on one side. But let's go with what I suggested for measurements. And let's see how this turns out. Now, you can use pattern paper, you can use other cardstock, you can use whatever paper. This is the fun decorative part of things. Get rid of my little backings there. Earlier this week on our Facebook coffee breaks, I did a little demonstration with a new product that we have called Pixie Powder, where you just sprinkle the powder on, you spritz it with water, and you can make this really beautiful background. And when I was showing Matt, he's like, yeah, those are really cool, but then what do you do with them? So I'm just going to show you that I'm going to use it as my background on my box. So I want my And maybe I'll write that on my template here, that my mat, not my mat that's downstairs, my mat that's going on my project is going to be 4 3/4 by 1 3/4. And you want to cut 2 because you want one for the other side. So I've just written that on my template for future use. I'm going to take my paper here. I'm going to do the 1 3/4 pieces first because I want to kind of maneuver it, make sure I get a little bit of that purple. So I may go a little bit bigger to start. And by 4 3/4, oh, my paper's only 4 1/2. So it just means I'm going to have a little bit more of a border. I'm okay with that. And this side will do 1 3/4 because I really like all the prettiness that's happening over here. And there are my 2 pieces of pattern paper. Typically, I would say your normal adhesive is fine. Because this is watercolor paper and it was wet and curled a little bit, I'm going to use score tape just to make sure it stays nice and flat. Again, liquid adhesive would also work. So I'm just going to center this on one of these side panels. And do the same on the other side. You could also decorate the inside of the box if you wished. I will not be doing that today. So now this is just starting to look like a gatefold card, but it's got that little surprise inside. And the final thing I'm going to do, just because I think they're really fun, they're brand new in from Lawn Fawn. So Lawn Fawn has a series of different little stamps. And with this release, they came out with the mirror image. So these are called flip-flop stamps. And so you can see you've got your chameleon here going this way. Now he's looking the other way. So I'm going to put a little chameleon on either side of my box. And then that way, when it's closed, it looks like they're kissing. When it's open, it gives you space to see your treat inside. My block, my ink. So this is my left hand chameleon. They do come with dies as well. He's pretty simple, so I'm just gonna fussy cut him when the time comes. Clean them off. And no, that's my shark. Where did there he is. Put that back in my little storage pouch. And do my flip-flop. Remember to season him a little bit. Too cute, too cute. Cute is the word of Lawn Fawn. Everything is just so adorable and well designed. So there are my flip-flop chameleons. I'm going to very, very quickly color him in. And let's just go with the light color because I'm going to do this quick. Sorry, this is the medium color, not the light color. And we'll do his friend the same color. Now that I'm looking at him, it kind of reminds me of those old TELUS commercials where I think there was a chameleon. They loved their critters. And when I worked in advertising, I actually worked on TELUS a little bit. And let me tell you, the process of choosing the critter of the campaign was quite involved. And you had to have lots of justification and reasoning why that critter was the right critter for the concept. So I'm just coloring in his stripes. And I'm going to use the lightest color for his eyes. Though I maybe could have left that white. And we'll quickly fussy cut him out. Again, if you've got the dies, you could use that. For these little guys, I just collect the stamps. And afterwards, I could bling him up with some Nuvo drops or some enamel dots. I know many of you have commented and shown your artwork from last week's class, which was the triple layer technique that we did. You could absolutely do that on the front here as well. Just create your triple layer and then cut it down the middle so that it fits over your gatefold. So how's that for a double whammy challenge for you? 2 techniques in 1. All right, I've got my 2 little chameleons. I'm going to, if I had pop squares with me, I would probably pop them up, but we'll just use tape today. I'm going to put him right here so he's right against the edge. Do the same here. And then our sentiment. You're one in a chameleon. So this is where a gatefold or something like this is super fun because you can do your messages over the 2 panels. You're one in a and oh, come on. Chameleon. So how cute is that? And that opens up and you could put your little gifty in there and have lots and lots of fun. So there is our fold flat box card. You now have a template to put in your stash and you are all set for a rainy weekend of crafting. So thank you very much, everyone.